Thank you very much for spending the time with me this afternoon. I'd love it so much if you would just introduce yourself to my listeners.
Russell Means. I'm an Oglala Lakota patriot from what the government calls the Pine Ridge Sioux Indian Reservation.
So, in your book, you speak about your life. And in the beginning, we start with the making of a militant.
Yes.
After the childhood part. All right, so in the making of a militant, you start talking about the American Indian movement. First thing is this: African Americans went through a period of being black, colored, Negro, and African American. Did the Native Americans, did the American Indians go through the same kind of process?
No, we always have our sovereign identity, which is our name for ourselves. Me and my Lakota. In my language, I said in English, I am a Lakota, which means a people together, allies. And in the Indian Sign Language, by the way, it's the same signal as the power signal.
Really?
In the movement, you know. So if the fist raised, that's Lakota. That means Lakota in our language. So I was really happy when the Black brought that around. But essentially, we have our own identity, each nation, each Indian nation. And so we don't have a problem with what the white man calls us.
One of the things that you mentioned in your, and I'm not going to really be jumping around, but I just want to clarify certain things. On your CD, you speak about the Native American, the
American
grouping.
Indian. I prefer the American.
Yeah, but there was a grouping that you were talking about, the way the white man had taken all the grouping, all the various indigenous people and grouped them all underneath one title, and that was not the way it's supposed to be. Can you reiterate on that?
Yeah, Pan-Indianism is non-existent. It can never happen, but it's happening. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing. Because they've robbed us of our identity, we've slipped into this Plains Indian romantic view of powwows. I hate the term powwow, but that's a white man's term that the colonized Indian has adopted. The powwow, the dancing, this drumming, the singing, you know, that's what the white man wants us to do for him. And now that whole thing has become pan-Indian. The urban Indian, the diaspora of the Indian, they have lost their ways no matter what nation they come to, so they've grabbed a hold of this romantic view and they've become a pan-Indian. And it's robbing my culture of who we are, because that is my dance, those are my songs. They shouldn't be doing that if they were respectful people.
Really?
Exactly. You don't steal from other people without, you don't become a culture vulture. That's a white man. You know? He's the culture vulture. But we aren't. We respect our relatives' visions. But when you lose your way and you become totally colonized, you know, it's understandable, really, and very, very sad.
Talk to me about the American Indian movement.
The American Indian movement began, and there's where, at first, the government and the news media was calling us a pan-Indian movement, which we weren't. We were after recharging our cultural identity. A true revolutionary is one that returns back to where he began. That's one revolution. And that's what I consider myself, a true revolutionary. And we decided, we looked at ourselves, we were urban Indians, we looked at ourselves and we said, who are we, why are we, and where are we going, and why? We all concluded in a hotel room in Minneapolis, Minnesota, that the best way to do it is go home and talk to the old people before they died. And I'm talking about the old people who had been reared in the 1800s by people who had been born free. Because we as Indian people, we must never, according to my uncle, we must never forget that we were once a free people. Because when we forget that, we cease to be Lakota. We cease to be Indian. So that's, in essence, what the American Indian movement was all about. So we were first a spiritual movement, and second a liberation organization. Now, in the 1970s, the government and Congress, the Congress House Un-American Activities Committee, which is no more, and the Senator Stennis from, I don't remember him, but he's from Mississippi, they called the American Indian Movement the Black Panther Party, the Young Lords of the Puerto Rican Liberation Movement, La Raza, Brown Berets, the Weather Underground, that we were the most dangerous organizations and we were all terrorists. Well, of all those organizations of the late 60s and 70s, the American Indian Movement was the only one to survive in the decade of the 70s. I'll never forget walking into Robert, I forget his last name, a brother in Washington, D.C. Right after January 1st, I think it was January 2nd, there was Kwame Ture. Used to be known as, what was his slave name? Stokely Carmichael.
Stokely, yep.
Stokely Carmichael.
Yep.
Well, Kwame Ture, and he looked at me, you know, and that guy's 6'6", and he had a wingspan on him, man, and Tommy Hearns would At any rate, he saw me, he came towards me, his arms outstretched, and he hugged me, he said, "Russ, we made it. We made it through the 70s, man, we made it." And that was so right on. That really gave us, that was 1980, you know, January in Washington, D.C. And so, you know, I did a lot of work with Kwame. Him and I, he went on a lecture tour of universities together.
I remember.
Together. And he would talk about, ironically, Pan-Africanism.
Right.
In his socialist movement. The All African People's Revolutionary Party, the AAPRP. And I would talk about freedom.